Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, we're going to be comparing an F-150 Tremor to an F-350 Tremor. I've actually gotten quite a few requests for this comparison so that you guys can see what the actual difference is between the Super Duty and the light duty truck. Before we get into this video, I do want to mention that I did release my car buying course, so if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to that in the description down below. Let's get into the comparison. Now let's start things off by popping under the hood of the Super Duty Tremor. So we've got the 6.7 liter power stroke that goes through a 10-speed automatic transmission. It's good for 475 horsepower and then 1,050 pound-feet of torque. You can still get the 7.3 Godzilla engine in the Tremor as well if you want. That's the V8, but you know, diesels are life, right? Anyways, popping over to the F-150 Tremor, we have the twin-turbo 3.5 liter V6 EcoBoost. Goes through a 10-speed automatic transmission as well, good for 400 horsepower and then 500 pound-feet of torque. So you guys can see two completely different powertrain setups under the hood, so definitely interesting with both the trucks. Anyways, popping to the front of the Super Duty, you guys will notice that I picked two Tremors that were both finished in blue, by the way, because I thought it'd be, I don't know, more fun for the comparison. You guys can see here the paint just looks fantastic on the Tremor, and I think this is like the best color for the Tremor to really accent everything. But notice that the whole front grille has been blacked out, so if you have the Tremor with the black appearance package, it just makes it look super sporty. I think that's the route to go. Notice with the LED lights there, and you guys can see the projector bulbs inside, super bright at night actually. And then you've got the fog light just down below, body painted bumper with the tow hooks. Now, as part of the Tremor package, they cut the air dam so that it actually improves the ground clearance, because it doesn't have like the crazy like beard air dam that you see on regular Super Duties. So that's definitely a big plus. And then another thing is the truck is lifted about 2 inches, and so that also increases the ground clearance there from a front end perspective. I guess when I filmed this video, I was obsessed with the Mustang rolling through. Anyways, popping over to the F-150 Tremor, you guys will notice again, finished in blue. You've got the venting here on the hood, which is definitely a nice piece to accent the truck. And then you'll notice here, we've got the LED accent lights with the projector bulbs, super bright. Notice we've got the gold accenting. That's part of the F-150 Tremor package you've kind of added. And then notice that we don't have like a black appearance package on this, so the Ford logo is regular. Skid plate popping out there. You've got the fog light down below again with the gold tow hooks, and this does sit a little bit higher than a regular F-150 from a stance perspective. It's got about 1 inch more of travel in the front and about 1.5 inches more in the rear. You know, part of that, right, is because they've slightly lifted it up, and then just the whole setup they've done from the shock perspective as well. Anyways, popping back over to the Super Duty, you've got 35s wrapped around 18-inch wheels in the front and the rear. Definitely a crazy aggressive look, and I've been told that you can just throw 37s on, and they don't rub or anything. Fix that in the comment section down below if I'm wrong, but that's what I've been told, is that you can just throw 37s on the truck. Anyways, you guys can see with the springs how they've been recalibrated. You've got the off-road shocks as well. So everything's been recalibrated with the truck, again, to make it sit a little bit higher, but then also to make it so it can handle off-road stuff a little bit better. Got the Lariat F-350 badge, got the Power Stroke badge as well. And if you guys are wondering, I picked a Lariat because the loaded-up F-150 Tremor is kind of like a Lariat, basically. You can't get like a Platinum F-150 Tremor like you can get with the Super Duty. I guess that's something we can talk about. Also, notice off-road side steps from the Raptor. But yeah, you can't get a Platinum or a limited F-150 Tremor, or King Ranch Tremor for that matter. You can only get it in like what would be equivalent to like an XLT or a Lariat package. So that's one of the benefits going to the Super Duty, is that you can get a King Ranch Tremor if you want. You guys can see leaf springs there on the back, super beefy because it's built off an F-350. Now, as for the F-150, you've got 18-inch wheels again, but 33s instead of 35s wrapped around the wheels, so a little bit different tire setup. Wheels are the same size, and like I said, it's slightly lifted. It does have a little bit of a wider track compared to a regular F-150. It's wider by about 1 inch, roughly. And then this does have off-road shocks just like the Super Duty, so it can handle bumps and everything a little bit better. Notice our F-150 Tremor badge there with the gold accenting again. You notice that throughout the F-150 Tremor is the gold accenting. Still have the Raptor off-road side steps, and then you can see there with the body painted mirrors, the camera just down below. And you can see here with the stance, it's raked a little bit more than the Super Duty is. So notice the front end's a little bit lower than the rear end, whereas the Super Duty is a little bit more even. So I've seen a lot of people putting leveling kits on their F-150 Tremors. And then also the leaf springs, since it's an F-150, are a lot less beefed up, right? That's just kind of what you expect with a half-ton. You can see the shock there in the rear. And yeah, definitely, cool look overall. And I bet you could fit 35s on that. You might need to lift it a little bit. It might rub, but bet you could. Anyways, popping here into the bed of the F-350 Tremor. Notice this particular one has bed liner already from the factory, which is a big plus. Now the payload's going to be substantially more on an F-350. Depending on the exact options and exact package you pick and the engine, right, it's going to vary. But, you're going to have roughly around like at least 3,000, if not 4,000 pounds of payload capacity with the F-350 Tremor. So it's going to be super capable from that perspective. Notice it has Ford's bed step. And going over the rest of the rear, you guys will be able to see here, we've got the blue, which looks a little bit different there in the darker lighting. Super Duty stamped there onto the tailgate, so everyone knows that you got the big bad boy truck. Got the LED lights there in the back, parking sensors along the rear. Exhaust tips popping out the side. Can't talk sometimes. I wish they were blacked out on the Tremor. It's one thing that's a little bit disappointing on the Super Duty. Anyways, you can see the key fob here for the half tons. You got like the remote start, which this doesn't sound too much different than a regular F-150. It sounds like it's maybe a little bit beefier because of the dual outlet exhaust tips, but it looks a whole lot cooler with the exhaust. Anyways, from a design standpoint here in the rear, looks nice with the taillights on. You can see this one does not have a spray-in bed liner. You can get that as an option. Also, payload's going to be substantially less. You're going to be like 1,400, 1,500-ish pounds, roughly, with the payload. Again, depending on exactly what interior package you get and all the options you get. Like, if you get a sunroof, right, that's going to lower your payload, for example. So just depending on options. But yeah, expect the payload to be substantially less compared to the Super Duty because, you don't have the crazy leaf spring and Super Duty chassis, right? Anyways, you can see here with the LED taillights, I think those look great. And again, with the dual exhaust tips in the back, it just definitely has a cool, aggressive, sporty appearance from a rear end perspective. Now, popping here into the Super Duty, notice that you've got some nice wood trim there, which doesn't really match the sporty theme, but it's okay. Got the lariat seats. And then you can see the rest of the door panel too, with that quick view. Not necessarily like the nicest from a material standpoint for the rear passengers. Got a bunch of charging ports. No heated seats in the back though. Good storage space. And this is one of the things that's a downside about the Super Duty is they haven't updated the truck as much as what the half-ton has. And that's just for the cargo tie-downs. So the truck does feel a little bit older from an interior perspective compared to the half-ton. So there is that slight downside when you're looking at the trucks side by side. And you'll especially be able to see that now that we are going back to the F-150. So just look at the material use in the door panel, just how that looks aesthetically. Definitely a lot more pleasing. And again, color match with all the logos. But yeah, just looks a lot better. The padding's nicer. And then the trim matches the package way better. It's not just wood trim thrown in, right? The darker trim matches the theme of the Tremor. And then look at the seats as well. Just look how much nicer the seats look. They do feel more comfortable as well. They're plusher, if that makes sense, right? And then it just aesthetically, like it just looks like a more expensive vehicle from a rear end perspective. And also notice here, cup holders, heated seats there in the rear, bunch of charging ports. So you got more luxury features. So you're just kind of winning on all fronts when you go to the F-150 Tremor, from a more modern luxury aesthetic, basically, with the interior. But yeah, let's head back over to the Super Duty now. Now, popping from the F-150 to the Super Duty, you can see here with the front door panel a little bit nicer than the rear, right? You can see the padding right there. You've got, again, more of that wood trim, all of our window controls. You've got the mirror adjustments, and then this does have the mirror extenders, which you can't get on the half-ton, I believe. Let me know if I'm wrong on that. I've seen the trailer mirrors in the half-tons, but I don't think I've seen the mirror extender. Probably wrong. Anyways, memory seats. Got another speaker for the sound system. And then you can see here with the front seats, again, with the leather and perforated leather, you've got the adjustments there on the side of the seat. Pedal layout just down below. We've got pedal adjustment there. And then notice like light controls, mirror lights. Steering wheel is power adjustable, which is a big plus. And then popping from that to the F-150, you notice again the theme carries to the front where you've got just a nicer looking door panel with more modern looking materials. And then notice here again with the blacked out trim that matches. And then you've got the 3 different functions for the memory seats, all for the window controls, and then the mirror adjustments. The mirrors do have blind spot monitoring, and then the speaker for the Bang & Olufsen sound system. I can say, and also there's a speaker in the headrest. I feel like the sound system in the half ton sounds better than the one in the Super Duty, like just more speakers, and I don't know, clarity seems better. And then also all of your adjustments. Got the pedal layout down below, pedal adjustment, parking brake, light control, mirror lights, just like the Super Duty, tailgate drop down, all that stuff. And then the steering wheel, again, is power adjustable, so a lot of similarities as well. And then popping back to the Super Duty, you guys can see the startup animation there, which I think looks great. And notice here at the steering wheel, really nice from a material standpoint. But you'll notice that this, again, looks a lot more dated compared to the F-150. So just kind of remember what the controls look like. You got a lot of a similarity with controls, right? Adaptive cruise control, controls to center stack, normal practical stuff. Also, column shifter. It's a big thing with the Super Duty. Notice you've got the plus and minus, so you can shift the gears yourself, and then the drive mode select is also on the shifter. It's kind of another interesting Super Duty thing. But popping here into the gauge cluster, you'll notice you've got analog gauges on either side with the digital screen there in the center, which I think definitely looks nice from an aesthetic perspective. And notice all the different menus you can scroll through there with the gauge cluster. Off-road stuff is the most important, right? Because again, the Tremor ultimately is an off-road package, so you're going to want to make sure you know where that is. And notice the range too, 504 miles to empty, and the truck's full. So decent range, especially, think about 500 miles off-road, you can go quite the distance. Now, drive mode's normal, tow haul, eco, slippery, deep snow, sand. Of course, pops in at 4x4, so you can't go to the next one. And then rock crawl. So you do have, drive modes for every single situation off-road, which is, what you're going to need. And probably way more than what you're actually going to use with this truck, because I don't think I've seen anyone take their Super Duty Tremor off-road. And then this is with the stability control. So there's a sport mode with the stability control. You just press it twice, and then it'll pop into the sport mode. So the sport mode's not in the drive mode select, it's within the stability control. It's kind of weird, but that's just how Super Duties work. And then you can turn everything off, and well, since you have 1,050 pound-feet of torque, this is just a burnout machine. It's pretty crazy. Now it's diesel exhaust brake. You've got your stability control, hazard lights, off-road cruise control, which again, another important thing. And then you can see there with the lane departure and then the camera button for the Tremor. And then notice we've got the 12-inch display. So this is new for 2022 with the Super Duties. It's something that you can get with the trucks now, which definitely makes it feel a little bit more modern, since the rest of the truck does definitely feel more on the dated side especially when you compare it to an F-150. Response time with the screen is great. And also the camera fills up the entire screen. Resolution on the camera is also fantastic. So there's quite a bit happening there. Notice you got the zoom function like with the receiver hitch. But yeah, it's covered from a camera perspective. You can see it at every angle, unless you can go to the sides. And the truck always gets mad when you do that, because it's like, hey, you don't have a trailer hooked up. Stop trying to do that. It's kind of funny. And as for the rest of the screen, response time's fantastic. This is basically just the 8-inch infotainment system that Ford had, combined with a little side screen, is the best way to look at the 12-inch display. So you just have that split screen function, which I think is great, because then you can see you've got like the navigation there on the side that you can use. And then notice you can like scroll it over onto the screen, which I think is pretty cool. And then you can also scroll through the different menus. So functionality on it's great. I think it's one of the best infotainment systems in a pickup truck right now. I still haven't played with Chevy's new infotainment system enough, but that's the only one that I can comment, that I can say that I'm not like 100% sure if that one's better or worse than the one that you have here on the on the new Fords in general. But yeah, we'll see how that compares to the F-150, right? And also, you guys can see the tabs there that I was talking about on the side that you can scroll through here with the infotainment system. And now that I'm doing the voiceover on this, I'm feeling like I should have cut out half the infotainment system stuff. But you know what? At least it's a refresher on how good the 12-inch display is, and work in progress on these comparisons. Anyways, driveline select. So you have 2-wheel high, 4-wheel high, 4-wheel low. Locker in the rear, which is all important for off-roading. No 4-wheel auto, though, on the Super Duties. They use a more primitive 4-wheel drive system compared to what you will see on the half-ton. And also, having a rear locker, right, helps out a lot. But it'd be cool if it had a front locker, too. Obviously, they can't do something crazy like a sway bar disconnect like what the Power Wagon has, but they could do a front locker. I'm sure they could figure that out. And then you got the trailer stuff. You've got the climate controls. You got heated and cooled seats there for the front passengers. And notice we got our whole power outlet situation there in the Super Duty, all of the wood trim, wireless phone chargers inside of that with the Super Duty. Notice you've got that for the storage space, more couple of storage space. That's where the shifter is in like the half tons, for example. And then this one has the lock box, which is a pretty neat option. And then we've got our Super Duty glove box, which is massive and practical. And then you can see the leather padding in there on the dash. Just kind of remember how everything looks here in the Super Duty. 6 auxiliary switches, which is great. So you can add a bunch of light bars, which will, make it into a cooler off-road build. Power sliding window there for the rear, full panoramic sunroof. And then you can see there with the controls for the sunroof. Now going over the window sticker here of the Super Duty, you guys can see this is a 2022, again with the Power Stroke, and then also notice it's finished in Atlas Blue, and they don't have to rate these with the EPA from a fuel economy standpoint. But freeze frame if you want to read all of the standard equipment that comes with the Super Duty, and if I remember right, this one was pretty much fully decked out from an option perspective. They pretty much were like, you know what, let's just select everything. So it's going to be pretty expensive from a price perspective. You guys can see the base price and then after all the options. And there are some minuses when you add certain packages. Ford just kind of does that. But anyways, $82,935 is the total MSRP there for the Super Duty Tremor, which is definitely pretty pricey, but I mean, it's a big full-size diesel truck. And then this is to show you the Atlas Blue versus what I believe is Velocity Blue. So you can see the kind of like hues that you can get with the different years for the Super Duties. Hopping from the Super Duty back to the F-150, let's go over the interior here. Notice we've got the cool startup animation for the full digital gauge clutch that sometimes takes a second. There you go. You can see it there in the background. But with the steering wheel, you've got that gold stitching there in the center with the padding all around. And then notice the trim there in the center. And just look how much more modern the steering wheel looks here on the F-150 Tremor with all the controls. It's not necessarily nicer from a material standpoint. It just looks more modern with how they shape the buttons and with just the font and everything. And so, yeah, I don't know. I'm a huge fan of the aesthetic of this, and I think it looks better than the Super Duty. Now, digital gauge clutch, this has been pretty controversial. Some people love it. Some people hate it. I personally love it. I think the font looks great, and I don't know. It's like I love looking at it, and especially with the RPMs, how it shows you like the exact decimal point. I don't know. I think that's cool. Again, some people find it kind of annoying, but I don't know. For me, I like it. Now, as for the drive modes, you can see all the different drive modes here on the F-150 Tremor. Now, the ones that are the most important, sport, of course, right, for your fun driving. And then you got the normal mode. And then the mode that you'll probably use the most for off-roading is maybe the mud ruts. Rock crawl, right, a little bit as well. But something that you can do if you just want to kind of like do a little bit of a hack is just put it in the sport mode and then put it in four-wheel auto if you have a Tremor that has four-wheel auto, and then it just turns everything off. You can do four-wheel high if you need that too. But anyways, you can see like off-road cruise control there at the top, and then you can see with the stability control, and then the camera button, all that functionality. And then 12-inch display, just like the Super Duty Tremor. Notice the camera system just as good with the resolution and then all the different viewpoints you can see out of the truck. So you're covered from a camera perspective, which is super important for driving this truck down trails and everything, right? You want to be able to see everything out of the truck. Super important. And notice it still has a cargo camera, so like they're pretty much equal from a camera perspective. I think the only thing this truck's missing is it doesn't have the side cameras. Oh no, it does have the side view. Never mind. There you go. Just fixed myself within the video. So yeah, they're exactly the same from a camera perspective, which you don't necessarily see with a lot of automakers from their half tons to their, full size. When I say full size, they're Super Duty trucks. And also, the other thing I want to mention about the camera system is if you have the truck in four-wheel low, I believe it'll put the trajectory lines there with, tire marks basically for the front camera because it knows that you're using that for off-road use. So that's a cool thing that I found out with some of Ford's products with their camera system, which is definitely interesting. And then as for the rest of the 12-inch display, oh, there you go. So you can see four-wheel low trajectory lines there with the tires. So that's what I was kind of talking about. So that's if you pop the truck in a four below, it'll do that. If you guys are wondering if you own an F-150 Tremor, for example. But yeah, as for the rest of the infotainment system, it's the same as what you have with the Super Duty. Still have that scroll over function. And so it's not really any different in any way. So if you're used to either infotainment system and you go from one truck to the other, it's all the same. Notice that this is all located in the same area. Drive mode select, and then notice again we have 4-wheel auto. So you've got to get the Lariat version of the Tremor, the 402A, to get the 4-wheel auto. So it's more advanced driveline select, and then notice all the outlets here. And this also still has a locker in the rear, if you guys are wondering. Storage space down below. You can see that whole setup right there, and then the darker trim. And then just notice again, everything just looks a little bit nicer, a little bit more modern, a little bit better put together. And then this has the workbench center console, which is definitely a cool feature to have, right? If you're out with the boys off-roading and you want to eat lunch in your truck, boom, you got a table right there in the center. So it's actually practical, right? Do you have the manual shift function? And then a couple cup holders, and then you see the center console's massive. This one doesn't have a lockbox like the Super Duty. Dual glove box still. And notice here, from a material standpoint, the dash, it's about the same, but it just looks a little bit nicer, a little bit cleaner with the lines. And then still have 6 auxiliary switches there at the top, so you can still add tons of light bars and everything with the F-150 Tremor. And then notice full panoramic sunroof. So all of that's the same power sliding window. And so from an option perspective, the trucks are pretty much identical. Now, let's go over the window stickers. You guys can see the price difference between the trucks, which it's, pretty substantial. But again, you're looking at a half-ton with a gas engine versus a Super Duty with a diesel engine. And this one's pretty much fully loaded from an option perspective for an F-150. You guys can see the base price, and then after all the options, you can see $68,785. So it is less expensive than the Super Duty, and let's kind of just fully sum things up with the trucks. So if you're not going to take either truck off-road, which I think is ridiculous because they're the Tremor package, but let's say you're never going to take either of them off-road, you just have to be honest with yourself, right? Are you going to use the towing capacity of the diesel or not? If you're not, save the money, go for the half-ton because it's going to, get similar fuel economy to the diesel unloaded because, again, you're not going to be towing, and it's going to be a much easier truck to park and drive in traffic, and it's more comfortable from a suspension standpoint. So it's just a better daily driver truck. If you are going to be towing, right, the diesel is going to be better tow truck, but just figure out how much you're going to need to tow, right? Because the half-ton can still tow like over 10,000 pounds, which is super capable. Whereas, if you need to tow over 10,000 pounds, then yeah, you're going to want a diesel truck. Now, from an off-road perspective, the F-150 has a better driveline than the Super Duty because, again, it's got the 4-wheel auto, and so the 4-wheel drive system just more advanced, and so it's going to be smoother off-road, and turn-in is going to be better off-road as well. I've experienced a lot of that with the new F-150, and so, yeah, just a better driveline. Obviously, it has smaller tires compared to the Super Duty, so that's kind of, a little bit of a downside, but still makes the half-tons extremely capable. And since it's a smaller size, it's going to be able to fit down more trails better, right? And so there's just a lot of pluses. And so the half-ton, I feel like, is going to be better for most buyers. The Super Duty looks so cool, don't get me wrong, but it's just not as practical until you throw in the towing into the equation. Then that kind of changes things just a little bit. But again, you just got to be honest with yourself. Are you going to tow with it or not?